Certainly.
Do we need to let PCT know that we're going to start?
It's probably a good idea. PCT, we're ready to go. We're on item 1, roll call. All right. Commissioner Erickson.
Here.
Commissioner Eisen.
Here.
Commissioner Althouse.
Here.
Vice Chair Clark.
Present.
Chair Black.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Hooray. Well, so I'm going to start then, okay?
Announcements and correspondence.
Welcome to the City of Half Moon Bay Parks and Recs Commission meeting. Thank you all for showing up. So thank you, Jonathan, for roll call. And do we have any announcements or correspondence?
Oh yeah, my baby is 3 weeks today.
Woo!
Nice.
What, you gave birth already?
Yeah, 3 weeks
Yes.
ago.
Oh, wow. Fantastic. Oh my God. Wonderful. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. She's healthy and
Beautiful.
normal. She's 5 fingers, 5 toes, and so it's all good.
Fantastic. Well, that's a great announcement. Love it. I don't know if it's on the, I doubt if it's on the agenda, but is everyone aware that the Murata Bridge is closed down?
Oh yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, there were plenty of announcements regarding it.
Yeah.
Because I just went out there today just to take a look to see how the whole thing is. And that detour is extremely dangerous. So I don't know, Matthew, but is there something that we can get at, like in terms of, cones, a barrier, something on that Highway 1 so that it's not as dangerous as it currently is?
Yeah, we're aware of the really dangerous situation that was created by the emergency closure of that bridge yesterday. We're working with the county and Caltrans to try to do some work to create a safe alternative route, because it's going to be like this for a year and a half, could be 2. And the county says a year, but there's the coastal commission's involved. It could take much longer. So they've got to do some work to create a much safer path of travel mostly for cyclists. If people are walking, there are stairs down to the beach. You go around and you can come back upstairs. But if you're on a bike, you have to go all the way up to the highway. And
Right.
We actually have a staff member that lives right where people have to take the highway route, and they've indicated it's really bad. It's really a precarious situation. So we're pushing the county and Caltrans to do something. We are also creating.
But even walking, I mean, I used to walk, I would walk from my house over to the Miramar restaurant. Can't do that now.
Yeah, now you have to go up to the highway or down to the beach.
Yeah.
So, and we're also developing our own plan that if the agencies that should be handling this don't, we may take our own action.
Okay, great, because we know how important this is, and how 5 years ago when we were doing Pilarcitos, we knew all the bridges were a mess. So it was a known thing 5 years ago. It's not like this is sudden. And we did Seymour, we did Pilarcitos, and got Sweetwood done. But this one is now, had to be shut down instead of being proactive and dealing with it ahead of time. So
yeah,
that's the
and
deal.
I don't know all the issues. I know that the county's been working on this project since I was there 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the delay is, but I know that they're working with the Coastal Commission right now. So we'll see.
All right, good.
I don't know if all of you heard, but San Mateo County is officially on the state's watch list as of today. You have to be on the watch list for 3 days before the businesses that have to shut down when you're on the watch list. That actually goes into effect. So that'll go into effect on Saturday. The main things that'll change is indoor gyms, indoor salons, church services. All of those will have to cease starting on Saturday. And we don't know how long we'll be on that list or if things will change. But it also affects the school district, although I think the school district made its plans assuming that this was going to happen but we're corresponding with them to make sure that we can support them as they move into their back to school efforts here in just a few weeks.
Do we have any more announcements or comments? Okay, we'll start with the staff informational reports. City council update.
Thank you. And just confirming, Jonathan, there's no public comment?
There are no public comments, no.
Okay. So we've had 2 city council meetings since our last Recreation Commission meeting. I'll provide you with updates on pertinent items and then happy to answer questions about any of the other ones. On June 16th, the city extended its agreement with Abundant Grace for the coastal cleanup team. That's the program where Abundant Grace Coastside Worker, the homeless nonprofit provider, hires homeless individuals, really anybody that's willing to work. You don't have to be homeless to participate in the program, to 3 days a week, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, clean the beaches. And some of that spills into the neighborhoods. And when there's time, some of the shopping centers and Main Street, they've been really, really key in, I think, an improvement to the condition of our beaches over the last year and a half. It's been noticeable for the community and for staff. And I think most importantly, there's been great outcomes from the program. Abundant Grace runs this program as well as its farm program up in the hills. They have a farm plot that they grow plants, and the homeless individuals are paid to work there, plant, and they learn farming. Then they harvest it, and then that food is used for the breakfasts that are done for the homeless and are provided to low-income families as well. So it's just a great service that Abundant Grace provides. And we talk with Eric DeBode, the executive director, on a really regular basis. And many people have been placed in permanent, non-subsidized jobs through these efforts. And housing has been accomplished by participants in this program. And it's just really great. This program provides dignity for the homeless, a sense of contribution to the community, an ability to provide for themselves to some degree, an environment where they can learn how to get back into the routine of a job and have punctuality and professionalism, and in a low risk environment for them, and that prepares them for these permanent jobs. And it's really been great for the community. So we're excited to continue that program. Also on the 16th, the city adopted an updated fee schedule, and lots of things were updated there, but of interest to you all. We made some changes to the deposit rates for facility rentals at the library and the train depot. Those rates were pretty low, and we had some losses that we couldn't recoup from damages at parties and things. The rate only was for private rentals. It does not affect the nonprofit rentals. Nonprofits are typically good renters and good citizens, and so this is for the private families and individuals that hold events in our facilities. The other major changes to the fee schedule are we've adopted rates for the rental of the kitchen, which is close to completion. It would have been done months ago, but when things shifted with COVID, staffing reductions, and of course attention, especially for our public works staff, shifted. It's taken a little bit longer to finish, but they're committed to having it ready to open on August 16th, which is when the fees they go into effect and can be charged. My guess is that on August 16th, we will not be allowed to rent the facilities, but it puts us in a position to do so when things reopen. And we'll be excited when we can all gather to take you all on a tour, and we can brainstorm. Maybe we can even hold a rec commission meeting over at Ted Adcock, and then as part of that meeting, go into the kitchen and brainstorm some ideas for ways it can be used for the community and for our recreation programming. The other thing that was that's happened since our last meeting on July 21st, we entered into an agreement with PG&E that will allow them to use the library as a customer resource center during public safety power shutoff events. It's a 5-year agreement, and it's really mutually beneficial. As some of you recall, last year, the city did a makeshift kind of customer resource center at the Ted Adcock. We just brought in staff during an event and provided, with the help of the library, internet access and other services to folks. This will now happen at the library under the direction of PG&E. And the reason we didn't do it at the library before is that we don't have an emergency backup power system there right now. We have applied for a few grants to get battery backups to connect to the solar system that we have there. We have not received any of those grants, so we'll continue to apply for those. But I've got a message from PCT. Oh, okay. If everybody could mute their mics if they're not talking, it'll help with sound quality. Because we don't have emergency backup power at the library, it was not able to be open during PSPS events. As part of this contract, PG&E will actually be connecting infrastructure that allows for generator backup. And during the fire season, they will have a generator on site that will automatically kick on in the case of a power outage. And so it's a great, I think, mutual arrangement, and the library staff are supportive. They want to be there serving the public when we reach that time that we can actually do that. We're happy to accommodate it in our facility. Other things that happened on the 21st, I'll talk a little bit more about it tonight, but we updated some of our city municipal code ordinances, and the council directed staff to put an increase to the transient occupancy hotel tax on the November 3rd ballot. And the proposed increase would be, for voters, would be for the rate to go up 2% beginning July 1st of 2021. We're currently charging 12%. It will go up to 14% on July 1st, 2021, and then another percent up to 15% on July 1st, 2022. All of that, of course, is subject to voter approval. The polling we've done has strong support for that in the community. And then, of course, we're working with the hotels to make sure that we can help offset the impacts that they're concerned about. They are concerned that higher TOT rates means that we may see fewer visitors. We're not sure that there's data supporting that, but we'll work with them to make sure we support them as much as possible so that that doesn't happen. That's all I have to share from our meetings. I will share, we actually, just before this meeting, we had an emergency city council meeting to tweak some of the language on that ballot measure, and that was approved. And then to set some important items for the August 18th meeting. The August 4th meeting was canceled, and so the next meeting of the council will be August 18th. And some of the items that they've asked us to put on there is consideration of a stronger requirement for masks in Half Moon Bay that includes fines and penalties for not abiding with that ordinance, and just general discussions about the impacts of COVID and the school year starting, making sure that there's resources for families and anything that the city can do to help. So August 18th should be an interesting meeting, and I'd encourage you to tune in if you're available that evening. Are there any questions on any of those items?
I had a quick question. I mean, it's a little bit off topic, I guess. It's about the vacation rentals. The city did a whole survey looking at vacation rentals in late January because they were thinking about reducing the time for like Airbnb and TripAdvisors. You know what I mean?
I'm familiar with the short-term rentals, but I'm not, the survey that you're talking about, I'm not necessarily familiar with. Is this the planning, community development department was preparing an ordinance to regulate short-term rentals?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I'm just wondering if anything has happened. I'm assuming not because of COVID. Nothing has progressed.
I'm not sure, but I'll check in with Jill, and she can provide an update. And probably the easiest way is to just send an update to all of you offline. It's a little bit outside of the realm of this commission, and so having to be a discussion item on an agenda probably doesn't make sense. But we can get you that information, and I'll have Jill I'll reach out to Jill. Thanks.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Thank you, Matthew. Now, we got Eddie coming up, recreation updates.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So last month, the city conducted an outdoor dining and retail survey with our downtown businesses. And I'm sure you all know that for quite some time now, the restaurants have been, yep.
Eddie, sorry, that's item 5B. We're just on the general recreation updates right now.
Oh, okay. That's good. Okay. Well, so Matthew, I'm sorry. Can I go ahead and touch on the Boys and Girls Club deal then? Okay.
Yeah, that'd be perfect.
Got it. Okay, perfect. Great. So for about 2 years now, the city has provided the Boys and Girls Club of the Coast Side a space to hold their Cunha High School after-school program at the Ted Adcock Community Center. And this semester, you guys may already know that the school district is going to be conducting their classes remotely, and the students will be attending remotely as well. This has brought to light some areas of concern and difficulties for some of the families and students. With students unable to attend the class in person, they're now required to have a variety of new means to participate in the education process. So the Boys and Girls Club have assessed the situation and have identified that there will be students who may not have any or all of the things they need to participate in the classes, like stable internet connections, computers, or technology at home to attend classes. They might not have a safe place to connect to their classes or a quiet space to focus on the lectures and the coursework. So last week we sat down with the Boys and Girls Club director, Jill Jacobson, and her staff, and we began to try to figure out how the city can provide the platform for them to allow the students a space with all the things that they need to be successful at school. So there are going to be obstacles in doing this and doing it safely and like a socially distant, conscious way. But the Boys and Girls Club have started creating protocols and procedures for something like this to take place at the community center. And we've just begun the process and have let them know the city's 100% willing to help them and help our families and students that need assistance. And I don't have much more information right now, other than we've sat down, we've met about this, and we've agreed that it's something that we want to help them, that we want to help them do. But I wanted to keep you guys all informed about that and where we are on this and what our role is going to be. So I'm sorry, I don't have too much more information. Again, we just began talking about it last week, but if you have any questions, we can go ahead and hear those now.
And I'll just share that they're also in discussions with the school district and the library. I think the goal is to set up several of these centers. The rules or the guidance, the guidelines from the state that would allow this kind of an activity are really the camp protocols, where you have a fixed cohort of kids for 3 weeks at a time, where the instructors or the leaders and the kids they're not part of any other groups. And so in order to facilitate having several, more than just a few students participate in something like this, it's going to take several locations and several distinct cohorts to do that. So we're helping them figure that out. And obviously the library and Ted Adcock Center could play a crucial role in that.
Okay, I have a question because I'm a little confused about this presentation of what? I'm not sure. Is this about their ability to get through the school year? Is this, what are we talking about here? What is it that what are the kinds of things that they need?
Well, so by going to school remotely, they need everything that we would need for something like this meeting that we're doing right now. So they
don't have computers at home? Is that basically it?
I mean, that's the assumption, is that
I think the school district is providing computers to everybody. It's the internet access, it's the support, and part of it is almost like tutoring support. We've got a lot of kids that basically fell off the radar.
Okay,
at the end
all
of the
right.
school year, and this gives a structured way for them to stay on track.
Okay, But what about using like things like the event center, which could, you know, socially distance, you know, quite a few people in that facility. Plus, they would have access to the internet, and yeah, like I'm just not sure why this isn't kind of more of a boys and girls club and the school board connection going on rather than the city being involved in it.
Well, so as I mentioned, they are working with the school as well. The problem is the camp protocols, which are the only protocols I think exist that would allow for something like this. It's limited to the number of students in a single location. So even if you have a massive facility, you can't put them all in a facility in different groups. They've got to be in separate facilities. And so they're looking at several fronts, and the city's just involved in anything that would happen at the library or at the Ted Adcock Community Center. Anything that happens on school property, they're working on separately with the school district.
Any other questions? No? Okay. As you guys all know, we've moved in March from doing our food distribution monthly to doing it weekly. So I like to give you all the official numbers at the end of each month. So last month for our food distribution, we served 1,117 families from our food distribution. We also had a little bit more than normal blood drives. We had the Stanford blood drive, as well as our first American Red Cross blood drive. And between both of those, we saw 92 donors. And that means there were 88 units collected. I wish I had more information about what a unit is, but it seems like a quantifiable goal that they try to get units, and they said it was a really great amount of donations they got from that. So it was a good month for blood drives at the community center. You know, we usually do the 4th of July parade in Half Moon Bay, and it was canceled this year. So we actually, the Recreation Department worked with the Downtown Beautification Committee and the Chamber of Commerce to basically create and put on a virtual Half Moon Bay 4th of July parade. And we had some really great submissions from that. Essentially what it was is we just put clips of business owners and families into a slideshow with some footage from last year and some really amazing background music. And you guys can find that online. I'm not sure. I don't think I got submissions from most of you. I did from Paulette and the kids and Adam. But it was well received. We got a lot of people that reached out to us and said they appreciated it. And if you haven't seen it, I recommend that you go on the website. It's under the recreation webpage right now under the virtual parade. So you should check it out. It's kind of like Matthew said, it's a feel good kind of thing. It's in lieu of actually being able to go there and see it live and participate in it. It was pretty fun. So definitely recommend you check it out.
Eddie,
and
oh,
yeah,
go ahead, finish, and I'll come back.
Go ahead. I'm ready right now.
Okay, so you have the blood drives, the Stanford as well as the American Red Cross at the community center. I never saw an announcement about a blood drive.
You know what? They actually recruit and make appointments on their own. So for the most part, they only have a little bit of wiggle room for walk-in clients.
No, but what I'm talking about, I'm a regular donor. I usually donate at the Ides Hall, and it's that Verify or somebody. They keep changing their name, but I never even saw like an announcement in the paper or on next door that there would be a blood drive at the community center.
Yeah, I understand. Again, they actually do their promotion, and I guess, registration and appointments internally. And it's something that they kind of already have in line before they show up to the event. So they account for passersby and word of mouth and having enough of an opening to accommodate a few walk-ins. But for the most part, they already have all the clients lined up and appointments made.
Okay.
We just provide them essentially with the facility and the place to do
Well,
it.
it's what my question is if I live in Half Moon Bay and they're going to do a blood drive in 4 weeks and I'm eligible to donate, I have not seen a posting anywhere regarding that. Just an FYI. I'm just curious. So,
Well, and Pat, I think, so Verity is the current name. I think it used to be Blood Centers of the Pacific.
that's the one that does it at
So
the
if you're registered with them, Stanford won't reach out to you.
Oh, okay.
So that's
Okay.
the thing is, these companies that provide these services have their own pools of donors.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
if you're not a donor registered with the Red Cross or with Stanford, you won't hear because they have enough donors already to fill.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for the clarity. I appreciate it.
And that's not to say that they don't ever have a walk-in donor,
No,
because
no,
they do.
none of them do. Yeah, none of them do. I mean, verify. That's what I used to be Stanford. And then when I moved over here, I started going to using Verify or Blood Center of the Pacific. So thanks.
Yeah.
Good report. You have more stuff, Eddie?
A couple things. Last time we talked, we were kind of I want to say we're in the beginnings of phase 3 of the reopening process. So we had already started scheduling some recreation programming outdoors at Smithfield, but with the goal of hopefully in the near future bringing it back indoors, which, as Matthew just said, we're not there. We're going in reverse now. But we have had a couple of really great programs, and I think it's a lot of it's due to the pandemic and the shelter in place. We had quite a few dog training classes, and I don't know if you guys have heard that during the pandemic, a lot of the shelters and the humane societies have been like out of animals. They've been just adopted because people have had time to spend with their animals. So just kind of a silver lining of the whole pandemic ordeal was that we've been able to host quite a few full dog training and puppy training classes from the pandemic. So that's been a really nice thing for the recreation department to have a kind of a outdoor flourishing program. So that's been really cool. And as we've been allowed to host renters that fall into that houses of worship category, like churches and things like that, which again, like Matthew said, now we're gonna have to stop doing that for a little bit, but we were able to bring back some of our reoccurring renters. So a few of our churches that were happening at the train depot and the community center, those have been happening for about 3 to 4 weeks now, as well as one of our reoccurring renters, the Narcotics Anonymous group from Half Moon Bay. We're able to come back to the train depot and start renting from us again. So we were there, we were on our way there towards the light, but now we're regressing a little bit. So it was looking good, looking better, but now we're pumping the brakes and yeah.
Eddie, where were the dog training? Where was that, at the little dog park there at Smithfield? Where did you do that?
We actually did it in Smithfield. So we don't have them do programming inside that dog park, but rather like one of the smaller fields in the back. So they're kind of isolated a little bit, detached from everybody else. But
good.
It was good.
Will there be more of those?
For sure. I think that's one thing where you're kind of guaranteed to have the ability to social distance with your dog. The instructor, Marion Pott, she is super loud. She can project her voice over miles and miles. It's just super conducive to what we're allowed to do right now. And it was just perfect with mixing that with the fact that everyone has these newly adopted animals and a need to train them. It's been really good. It's been great. And hopefully that's something we can continue to do.
Wow.
And that's all I have, guys, for recreation update.
I will add just on top of Eddie's report, as you know, we had layoffs. We laid off 10% of our workforce, and those of us that remain are on 10% furloughs. And so, all departments, the workload hasn't really changed for most of us. And so all departments are struggling to find capacity and find opportunities to work on different things. And with the changes to the rules and us unable to reopen our facilities, there is some capacity in our rec department, and we're just really grateful to Eddie and Nicolette. They've jumped into everything over the last couple of months. A couple of projects that had been sidelined. They've done a lot of work to help us with our economic development efforts, working with the downtown businesses. Eddie will talk later on tonight about a survey that we were having trouble getting responses on, and him and Nicolette literally just walked business to business and met with the owners. That's also the same way they got the video done for 4th of July. They've also supported our communications efforts and some regional work we're doing around signage up and down the coast for beaches and pack it in, pack it out campaign. So we're just, it's a good time to have that capacity. The departments know that as soon as things change and we can start doing indoor recreation and things ramp up, they're losing that because Eddie and Nicolette on their own, we didn't go from 3 to 2. We went from 5, because when you counted all the hours that we were getting from our part-time staff, we went from 5 full-time equivalent to 1.8, because now we have 2 full-time people that are furloughed 10%. And so it's
Did
going
we
to be.
lay off the part-timers?
We didn't lay any of them off, but we didn't budget for any hours from them. The only way, thanks for asking that, because that reminds me, when I was talking about the fee schedule, one of the other things we introduced is a fee for events that happen outside of regular business hours when we are able to rent the facilities out, because we depended on those part-timers to get us through weekends, evenings, that kind of stuff. Rather than telling people flat out, I'm sorry, we don't have staff, you can't rent our facility, they'll be able to pay a flat rate to have those part-time staff come and work. And so that was a way we were able to convince the council and leadership that since we didn't lay these people off, now availability, that's going to be hard to tell, because it's been 5 months since we've given any hours to any of our part-time staff. But our hope is that they'll still be available when we need them. And an event comes, a party comes on a Saturday and wants to rent it for the whole day Saturday, $25, is that what we established, Eddie? They'll pay $25 an hour on top of the regular rental rate to have a part-time staffer come in and staff the facility.
So are these part-timers, is their work on call only? Is that the
Yes.
way it works? Okay,
Yes.
all right.
It was always on call. Some of them, it was very, very consistent. When we had 3 full-time staff, that allowed us to have basically a full-time staff member on site, I don't remember, 12, 13 hours a day, 7 days a week. It really worked out well. But that's not always enough, especially when you have events going on at different facilities. And so we
Right.
were able to regularly schedule some of these part-timers, and then, they were available as needed, kind of on call. And that's why we didn't have to lay any of them off. They're still on the books. They're just not getting scheduled for any hours. And we did not budget for any hours for them yet.
So how does it work for them in terms of, when you say they're still on the books, does that mean they can't go on unemployment?
No, they still could. We made sure of that before we made this arrangement.
Okay.
Unemployment has nothing to do with whether or not you're an employee of a company. It has to do with how much money
Hours
you're making,
worked.
and hours worked, and
Yeah.
how much you're getting
Okay.
paid. So and several of these folks have other jobs, which is why we hope that when the time comes that we can start to schedule them, that they'll still be available because they're still working in their other jobs. So, but all that is to say that our capacity to serve the community through our rec department is not what it used to be. It's not even close. And so when things start to reopen, we've got, and Eddie and I talk about this a lot because planning for that reopening has to happen months in advance. And so every time we think we're about to reopen, Eddie and I meet and we come up with plans, and I know him and Nicolette are talking about it all the time. It's going to be really, really hard. It's going to be very hard to staff our programs with 2 less than full-time staff. But that's the situation we're in, and we understand that that's what, the council had to make tough decisions, and this is a department that has capacity right now. Our hope is by mid-year that things are getting better, and there might be opportunities to either bring back a full-time staff or at least regularly schedule some of these part-timers. But in the meantime, we found this fee approach as a way to potentially not turn customers away from using our facilities, but not burden the city with the cost of those additional hours. So it's a very, very interesting time here in recreation. And I think we're just all grateful to avoid what happened in 2008 because there's no outsourcing this anymore. There's nobody interested in helping with this. We have to do it on our own. So I just want to publicly thank Eddie and Nicolette because they've been the ultimate team players during this time period, and they've been willing to take on anything that we ask, and they do it really, with great attitude, and it shows their talents and their diverse backgrounds. So really grateful for them.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, then that's all I have right now for recreation updates.
Thanks a lot, Eddie. We're real proud of you guys.
Thank
You
you.
do a fabulous job. Thank you. Now, the next is the Parks Master Plan
Jonathan,
implementation.
is Moz attendee in the meeting? He was going to try, but they're very short-staffed right now at Public Works.
I don't believe so.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and give just a brief update on this. We have several folks dealing with family and on vacations, and so Moz is kind of on his own at Public Works right now, so he wasn't able to make it. And frankly, there's not a lot of update on the Parks Master Plan implementation. Obviously, the stairs were reopened last month.
Beautiful.
Can everybody mute themselves? Eddie? Yeah. Obviously, the stairs opening at Poplar Beach were a huge success, almost unexpected how it all turned out and how quickly it happened. But that is probably one of the few things we'll see move forward project-wise for the time being. Public Works also took major hits to staffing. They're down 2 maintenance workers due to attrition and layoff. And we've actually had workers affected by the coronavirus in an extended sense and not been able to come into work. And so they've been working skeleton crew for several months. And you talk about a department that has been asked to do more during this time period than they've ever been asked to do. And so their focus really is, just maintenance, cleanliness, safety of our community, and just trying to stay on top of all that. During the Friends presentation, we'll talk a little bit about Frenchman's Creek Park and the plans for that. And then, of course, Ocean View Park, they were wrapping up those improvements as things closed down. So that's another facility that will reopen as soon as we're able to reopen our playgrounds. Are there any projects that you have questions about?
Yeah, Matthew, no, I don't have a question, but just that at one of the city council meetings, no, maybe it was at the BPAC. All these meetings, I don't remember where's what.
And you're
But
all in the
Moz-
same room every time, so there's no
That's
context.
right. But Moz was there and he was talking about the plans for, or maybe it was John Dowdy, but the plans for the Poplar, the path to go down to the beach.
That's right. And I do believe the council approved funding, and there's some grant money that will make improvements to the pedestrian trail that runs from Railroad to the coastal trail. along Poplar.
Right.
That's the path you're talking about?
That's right. And
Yes.
talking about, so, having, trying to make it wider by having, maybe gravel or DG on the side, so that, one can be walking along there while a bike is passing you by on on the path. So that was the other part of important, discussion about, because that is a mess.
And did they talk
And
about timing?
especially now when we're supposed to be social distancing. I mean, I can't walk, so I haven't been walking that path, but but that is a path that, is just not wide enough to do social distancing. You're going to pass people, you're going to be pretty close. There's just no way to be, far away from each other, so another reason to make that wider. It's just not wide enough, not with the strollers, the bikes, the people walking, the dogs, the whole thing. It's so I was happy to hear that's in the plan.
Did they talk about timing at all?
I was going to ask you about that. They did, because I think they did talk about it. It sounds like it's not that far in the future.
Yeah, I don't have, you might actually have more information than I do being on the BPAC. So that's the
Yeah.
advantage of having you on both commissions is
Right.
you get a little bit of insight that I don't even get. So
Yeah.
I don't know the timing. I apologize.
Yeah. So for those especially who live in that area, that's exciting to have that, because it's been such a long time, trying to patch it up, to just keep it together for a number of years. But it's just been a mess for quite a while, and it'll be great when that gets done.
And in the same vein, last night, the Planning Commission held its first workshop study session on the updated local coastal land use plan. And this is basically a general plan that governs all the land use in the city. Because we're in the coastal zone under coastal commission jurisdiction, it's called the local coastal land use plan. And it's much more complex and a lot more to it, including having to be approved by the Coastal Commission or certified by the Coastal Commission after approval locally. The Community Development Department, Jill Ekus and her team have been working on that for 5 to 7 years. And then Jill and a couple of her staff have probably done 5 to 7 years worth of work in the last 2 or 3 months. It's unbelievable the amount of hours they put in. But this is one of the more important things that will happen here in our community. It's going to shape the future of our community, where development can and can't happen, what kinds of development can and can't happen. It takes into account all the things we've been hearing about how people want to see the downtown, where they want to see affordable housing, what types of affordable housing they want to see. It will impact parks and open space. So there will be multiple study sessions. I think the next one's on August 11th. It's very technical. It's not for the faint of heart, but I do encourage you to participate and listen and follow that. There will be approval by the Planning Commission and then study session and approval by the council. I think all of that is scheduled to be wrapped up by October. And then it's a 6-month to year-long process with the Coastal Commission. So if you haven't been following it, I encourage you to at least check in, gain an understanding, look at it. Again, for those that live in Half Moon Bay or work in Half Moon Bay, this is going to impact all of us for the next 50 years. So.
So shall we move on to the update from the Friends of the Half Moon Bay Parks and Rec?
And Sherazad, if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to do a little intro because we weren't able to connect earlier today. It looks like we've got Sherazad, the chair of the Friends, coming on. In our last meeting with you in June, we had a good discussion about the ongoing relationship with the Friends and wanting to develop an MOU that really establishes that relationship and defines it. And then the Friends also talked about supporting some of our current projects through fundraising. Shirzad, I'm sure we'll talk about all that. I just really want to give a quick update. The Friends actually drafted an MOU and provided it to us. Our attorney's been reviewing it, and we hope to turn that around in the next couple of weeks. And that, once it's approved, will, again, as you wish, and it's something we'll bring to you before it's approved for discussion and your thoughts on it, but really define that relationship. And then we've, again, been working with them on some of their fundraising for some of our projects, and that's moving forward. So with that, sorry, Shirzad, didn't want to step in front, but we weren't able to chat today, so I just wanted to give that preface.
I thought you were going to talk a lot more.
I
No.
can, I can.
Yeah, please go ahead. You're a way better talker. Well, thank you. It's great to be with you guys, and I'm definitely not as charismatic as Maria is, but she was busy with her new puppy, so I'm more than happy to step in. But we've been very busy with Friends of. Matthew was very kind to come and join us at our last meeting. It was really wonderful to have him there, because as we move forward in our brainstorming, and as we move towards this phase of city budget, and as you talked about having to cut Parks and Rec and the changes you have to make, and gosh, I can't help but to go back to those days when we had to outsource it, and really what we had to go through. So I'm so happy to see this city has such great leadership that you guys are able to hold on, and we're definitely here. We're here to support everything. This organization wasn't here at that time, and now it's here. Our board unanimously wanted to support the fundraising effort for Frenchman's Creek. So they moved that right up front. We understand the pool project will be a long-term project. And we understand that, our goal is 50,000 for the implementation or the installment of the current purchased equipment for Frenchman's Creek. And we have, we're very excited. So we got the okay from the board, so we're ready to go. We do need a signed MOU. Our board does feel like, especially after our last meeting with the Parks and Rec Commission and some of the commissioners' hesitation, or maybe, I don't know, not clarity of what role we play. We'd like to make sure that that's all very clear. And then, but we're very excited. We have developed a new development subcommittee. Everything can't happen in our board meetings. I, as a president, I really try to have a very tight board meeting time. So everything happens on a subcommittee level. And we've created a development subcommittee. And we realize now, in the time of COVID, outreach, fundraising, everything else will look different. And we're going to have to really look outside the box and really just how is this going to look? And we have some really wonderful ideas, and we will be reaching out to some of you. We're so lucky to have Amy on our team. Amy will be on our development team from your commission. We're so lucky to have her. She has some amazing ideas, and we will reach out to some other people. But, as we move forward, things will change. So how will that look? And we're really hoping, I don't know if this is just Shirzad's, just view, but I'm hoping that we're going to get this 50,000 by the end of the year. So we have 6 months. So that's what our goal is. We have our database in place. We've updated our website, and We have a new, we are also have one of our board members left. We have a new person in charge of our pool committee. So our pool committee also continues. That effort is still continuing, but we've also are adopting new funds allocation. So we're really defining how funds come in, how do we allocate it, and we're setting our budgets. We're going after larger grants, and Maria's been an absolute such an asset to our organization. So we're really developing a fantastic foundation. We're building from the ground up and doing it properly. And and it was really wonderful to have you guys' input there. And we hope that we continue to have your input and direction as we move forward, so we can really get through this time together. I know we're going to get through this time together. That's it.
And I'll just share, Maria, immediately following the board meeting where it was approved that the Friends would be raising funds for the installation of the Frenchman's Creek playground equipment. She acquired some of our documentation from some of our other projects and put together a sponsorship program to raise funds for that specific project. We're working on some input from Public Works to make sure that the program matches the project, but that should be in place really, really quickly. And as Sherzad mentioned, their hope is to raise those funds by the end of the year so we can get that equipment installed and up and running. So thank you, Sherzad.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I hope that happens. That would be great. Be great to move something forward, something positive in these very kind of dark times. Because even interestingly enough, even Little Kehoe Park, I'm seeing more action there because people are desperate. Okay, that's the reality of our situation. They're desperate with kids to get out, get them moving, get them to go, to go somewhere, and the options are so limited now. So it's being used a lot more, and it's interesting to see, because for the longest time I saw it was like nothing going on there almost all the time, and there's not much there, but even the little bit that's there is being used a lot more right now. So let's keep our fingers crossed and see what we can help and support and get that equipment at Frenchman's Creek, because I'm sure that community would really be appreciating that.
And I believe Kehoe Park is the next park in the master plan implementation plan for a similar project. So if the Friends can get us across the finish line on Frenchman's Creek, that just allows us, when the funds become available, to start the planning to move that forward. So
Yeah,
that's great.
great.
You're on mute, Pat.
Do we have any questions or concerns? Yep. So we're going to go to 5B, the downtown planning and street closure. That's Eddie.
It is. Okay. So last month, the city conducted an outdoor dining and retail survey with our downtown businesses. And I'm sure you all know that for quite some time now, the restaurants have been restricted to offering food through takeout or or serving their patrons in an outdoor dining setting, if they're one of the few restaurants that have that capability. In the survey that we put out, we asked the business owners and proprietors several questions regarding outdoor dining. The first question we asked was where they would prefer to have a partial street closure. or a partial closure of Main Street or a side street to accommodate some sort of a shared outdoor dining area. Obviously, the first choice was to close Main Street, a portion of Main Street, which for the amount of restaurants that we have in Half Moon Bay downtown was a little bit excessive, just due to the impact that it would have on the flow of travel and the traffic that it would cause. But their second choice was a partial closure of East Kelly Avenue. So to be specific, that's the area of Kelly Avenue next to Mac Dutra where we typically close off the street for the concerts in the park. So that was the second choice of those that we surveyed and the responses that we got. We also asked if these businesses and business owners would be able and willing to contribute any sort of resources to assist the city and local businesses with expanding the outdoor dining options. And so we did get quite a few responses from folks that were willing to pitch in and help out, so that the city could create this kind of a shared outdoor dining environment. So the top response that we got was that most people that took the survey and responded were willing to be some sort of a sponsor for this kind of event. Yeah, and that was the top response we got. The second top response we got was they'd be willing to donate or contribute some sort of ambiance to that kind of environment. So whether it be trees or umbrellas or string lights or plants, they were willing to do that. Now, right under that, we had, and I'm sorry, guys, I drank too much tea. We had groups that were saying that they would be willing to donate cleaning stations, so hand sanitizers or hand sanitizing stations and cleaning supplies. Underneath that, we had folks that were willing to donate staff, so some of their staff from the restaurants to help set up and break down the equipment for this kind of outdoor dining area, to help monitor trash and to wipe tables down and things like that. So that was really great to hear that not only did they want this, but they were willing to pitch in to help us create it. And then we also asked if we were to close an intersection or a side street to accommodate this outdoor dining, what type of frequency would they want to see? And I'll go through that with you real quick. Just one second. And I'll start from the bottom, from the least voted for option to the most popular. So the least popular option for the amount of time or the period of time that we would do something like this, the least was one weekend day per week for the foreseeable future. That was we had 2 responses, so that was 4.8% of our responses. The second from the bottom was never, and that was 6 responses. 14.3% of our responses said never, they're not interested in doing it at all. The third from the top response was every day for the foreseeable future. That was 9 responses at 21.4% of this people surveyed. Second from the most popular was every weekend, Friday morning through Sunday evening for the foreseeable future. That was second from the top. And the top response was what we decided to do, and that is to pilot one weekend, one time, and then reassess. So from a Friday afternoon until a Sunday evening, and that was 13 responses, and that accounted for 31% of the responses that we got. Am I hearing something? Is that me?
Oh, wait.
It's not me, is it? I think it was Pat. She muted herself now.
Okay.
She was playing the blues.
Yeah, it sounded great, Pat. So with all that considered, from the survey and the responses that we received, we've started planning this pilot outdoor dining area. And for the weekend of August 21st through the 23rd, so that's Friday the 21st through Sunday the 23rd, we're going to host this event downtown, where we usually have the concerts in the park, where we usually close off the street. We're also going to be utilizing our newly approved city-run sponsorship program to help us offset some of the costs for putting on the event. And this sponsorship will hopefully cover all the costs of the equipment, the materials, the services that we'll need to facilitate an area that can accommodate up to 50 people safely and in a socially distanced manner, as well as having our custodial staff come and clean down the bathrooms and sanitize all the shared areas throughout those days. And that's one project we've been working on. Nicolette and I have basically put together a sponsorship series of sponsorships and levels and different kind of incentivizers that come with those. And it's nothing crazy or out there. I think it's starting off at $50 at the lowest, $100 in the middle, and then $200 at the top tier of the sponsorship. And we're pretty excited. It's the first time that, obviously that we're doing a sponsorship program, but we think it's going to be pretty appreciated. We think not only is it going to benefit the businesses and the community, but also the visitors that come. So yeah, that's what we've been working on. Do you guys have any questions about that?
I'll just add a couple of key points. One of the things that we heard from the businesses where they could just provide their feedback was across the board, whether they were supportive of this or something like this or not. There's still a lot of concern from our businesses about the risks associated with creating a space where people could potentially congregate and use the same tables and chairs and those types of things. And so it was really clear that in the development of this, that we really take that into consideration. And so, we've had ideas like, oh, we should get music and, we had all kinds of ideas. And what we realized is we're not promoting this as a community event. We don't want to promote this as an opportunity for people to gather. What it really is an opportunity for people that go and get takeout food downtown to just have a place to sit down and eat their meal outdoors. And it's going to be very, very labor intensive. We plan to have several staff there the entire weekend. Crystalline plans to be there most of the weekend. The businesses, as Eddie shared, will be sending some of their staff down to help support it. It's going to be really, really labor intensive. And part of what we're gauging is how sustainable is something like this? And is it really safe to do on a long-term basis? A lot of cities that have done, just went right out and started closing streets and doing these programs have had really scaled them back because they found that people behaved really, really badly. And so those are some of the things we'll be thinking about and considering as we move it forward. And part of the reason why we're not talking about having music or other activities to really turn this into a full-blown event, we just don't think that's appropriate right now.
I have a question.
Okay.
So we're going to be limiting 50 chairs. How are we going to control that?
Well, so it's not a BYOC situation. We're going to rent all this equipment. We're going to rent 12 tables, outdoor dining tables, and 4 tables per chair, or 4 chairs per table. And we'll have staff there to monitor it. So that's how we're going to regulate it, and that's how we're going to keep it from getting too big. But they'll only have enough seating that we provide, essentially. So we're only going to have 50 chairs. So it shouldn't get larger than 50 people. And obviously they'll be kind of staggered so that, the tables will be offset 10 feet away from each other. There's plenty of room there.
Yeah. It's nice. Yeah.
And then like we touched on the ambiance and like donated plants from various gardens and apothecaries and things like that. And we'll kind of station those between tables and to make it give a little bit more distance and keep it, make it nice and more comforting. But it shouldn't be larger than what we allow it with our equipment.
I have a
Yeah,
question.
sorry. I've got a few questions here. I'm not sure why. Did you find out why the people who wrote never wrote that? Do you have a sense of in your survey, you have these from the second, the first level, I forgot what that was, but the second one was the never.
So
Do you know why those people would not want any
Paulette, that wasn't in the survey for them to explain their response to the question. I can tell you from that one question, and here's the question verbatim, is if we were to close intersections of Main Street or side streets to accommodate outdoor dining, what is your level of support for each of these frequency options? And so altogether, we had, I'm so bad at math. 34, 40. We had 42 responses in total. So the least one was we had 2 responses for one weekend day per week, and then for never we had 6 responses.
Right.
That's all we really know. And
Okay. All right,
I
so you
can-
don't
I can-
know. I
well, I
just
can glean
thought
a
that
little
when you
bit.
went around and talked to different businesses, you might have gotten some response to that, because I'd be curious as to why they would say never.
I can say that there were several in their other responses where they could actually fill it out that didn't want any sort of programs, anything that would bring people downtown strictly out of fear. And then we also heard from several of the retail businesses that they just don't feel like something like this benefits them at all, and so that's why they don't support it. Because I think it might have been partially the wording, because the word support implies actively doing
Oh,
something to make it
that they
happen.
would have to contribute in some
right.
way. Okay. All right. So that's one question. I'm not sure why you didn't go for a pilot that would involve, 4 attempts, like in other words, 1 month, 4 weekends in a month, so that all the effort that goes into the decorating, the planning, is, in other words, give it a chance to see how it would actually work, because 1 weekend may not tell you enough of a story, and meantime you went to all the trouble to put it together, and you're just giving it kind of a one shot. So I'm not sure why you wouldn't have tried a pilot that would go for a month, because don't forget, we still have our warmest months coming up: August, September, October. And even we might even be able to do business into November if we're still in this shutdown mode, which I think we might be, So I think, I mean, I don't know if you've gone, has anyone been over to the barn? I haven't been inside, but I went by there today, and it looks nice. They have a bunch of tables set up outside. They have a tent area with tables. They've done quite a bit. I don't know how it's working for them, would be interesting to know. But, they've done their own, because they have some property. They've done their own thing about really getting the outdoor scenario set up. So that's, why never to close out yeah, the signage is going to be really important, for people to to try to control behavior. That's all one can do, is really to try to control it with education and signage. And I think that's going to be really important for this thing, for it to be hopefully successful. We not use and why would we not use our chairs? Do we need to rent chairs? I mean, we've got a whole bunch of chairs.
I'm happy to respond to those questions, Eddie, unless you want to. So the first one of why it's only 1 weekend is twofold. One is the survey gave lots of options. The overwhelming support was just to try it for a weekend and see how it goes. I think, again, that plays into people's concerns that this could get out of control. The second piece has to do with our staffing and resource constraints. You're right, we are expending a lot of effort right now to set this up. It's easily replicated. So if the first weekend works really well, it'd be very easy for us to make the decision and do it again. But part of this is we're exerting a lot of effort now to structure it in a way that if it works well, to some degree, we hand it over to the businesses and say, look, we'll support you, but we're going to have to rearrange schedules to have city staff there because we're all on furloughs now. Public Works is going, it's hard for them to close streets right now. They don't have the staff to normally do that. And so a lot of it is just judging, is the effort worth the response enough to try it again? And as part of that try it again, it's beginning to allow the businesses to take more ownership of this kind of a project, because they're the ones that benefit. And if they can see that it benefits them, I think they will. So that's why I think it's easily replicated. We don't lose the effort that we put into it by waiting and seeing if we should do it again. It can easily be continued again. Tables and chairs. We had lots of conversations about, we've got tables and chairs. Businesses have tables and chairs that could be dragged over. It basically boils down to, again, just labor and labor intensiveness. Our tables and chairs, they're very expensive. They're meant to be used indoors or occasionally outdoors. We don't have the staff to set it up in the morning and put it away, which means it would have to sit out for an entire weekend. And even on a great weekend, the elements are going to take their toll. By renting, we take all of that away. The business that we're going to rent from will come in, they'll deliver, they'll set everything up. Eddie does have equipment that will lock it at night. It's stuff we purchased for our Summer's End concert and other events. We'll unlock it in the morning. It'll sit out all weekend. That's part of the rental. It's meant to be left outside. And then on Monday morning, they will come and pick it all up. So it was just a call between dedicating a lot of staff time and risking somebody being sick or injured or something changing and we can't get it set up, versus a little bit of cost, which we hope will be borne by the businesses that are sponsoring it, and we'll get promotional support from it, to make it really simple. And again, if we're going to do this on a continual basis, we want to have a structure that's very easy to replicate with less city involvement.
I have some questions and comments. So just to talk about the survey for a minute, because I agree with Paulette. I think there were kind of strange questions on the survey. There was only one question about, do you want to pilot it? And so let's say most people want to pilot it for a week. That question wasn't on there. So the only pilot it question said, do you want to pilot it for one weekend? So there's really no way to assume that everybody wants to pilot it for one weekend, because they had no other choice. They clearly want to pilot it if, overwhelmingly, but I don't think you should assume that anybody prefers a weekend versus a week. And my thinking there, who knows? I have no, I'm not a business. I'm not a, I don't have a restaurant, but I'm just thinking I live downtown, that for safety and for the benefit of Half Moon Bay, I wonder if, like the weekend is so busy, right? So I guess that makes sense for a pilot, but also it's a little bit like, if the weekend is the wrong time, we just don't know. Like if it's better to do it Monday through Friday and not Friday, Saturday, Sunday, like then we don't get that. We would have to do a new pilot. So like I would highly strongly recommend you pilot it for like, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or something like that. So you do get some weekdays to see if it's, what's the difference, what happens. And I remember, like on Nextdoor, when this discussion was going around and around, to answer your question, Paulette, like some people said that it was unfair. Like, I don't know, I didn't really agree with that, but a lot of people were like, well, all the restaurants that aren't downtown will not benefit from that. And so, and then the other things that Matthew said, those were, but you can go back to Nextdoor and search, and you'll find lots and lots and lots of opinions about this. And then the only thing else I was going to say is, is there a way to find out how, like with Pasta Moon and San Benito House, where they've been open and having people sitting kind of close by for months and months, or whenever it was, I don't know how many months, but very busy, if they've had any problems. You know what I mean? Like if anyone's gotten COVID, if anybody's whatever. I mean, we even ate there, a couple times at pasta, well, both places. We were like all freaked out, but we did it and survived. And I just would really love more data on what's going on.
Happy again to respond to those questions. I will say the survey was not created in a vacuum. We meet with the businesses on a very, very regular basis. And those questions were based on input we had already heard from businesses. And at the time it was being discussed, during the week was not of interest to them. They're looking as businesses to maximize if they're going to be open, if they're going to offer things, when they're going to have the highest traffic. And if there's something our community's shown over the years is that downtown is dead during the week, right? So I don't disagree with you that if this works well and we don't have any issues, to some degree, we might just shut down that block for the next 6 months, or maybe through November. As Paulette pointed out, we've got our warmest weather ahead of us. It's just a dip a toe on our toe in the water, and if it works, then we can look at it on a longer term and something. I mean, frankly, a lot of this stuff, I hope these are things we've wanted to do for a long time, and we got zero support. People are a little bit more open to being creative right now, a little bit. And so we're hoping that we can open the door for a lot of this stuff that should be happening without COVID, right? Like this is stuff, the parklet ideas, the street dining, like that stuff is what makes a vibrant downtown. We've gotten zero support as we've proposed these ideas in the past. We've gotten a lot of backlash from proposing these kinds of ideas in the past. So we see it as an opportunity to go at the community's pace, dip our toe in the water, show that things are not as something to be afraid of, and do more. At the same time, if we find that we were wrong and it was a bad idea, it's easy to shut it down. And then I did see the Nextdoor posts. There's a lot of them about supporting the businesses. Sorry, I was killing a fly just now. And yes, we also think that the survey was not just directed at downtown businesses, it was directed at all of our businesses, and it incorporated more than just street closures. That's just the focus of this presentation because that's what Eddie and Nicolette are working on for August. The other things that are being prepared and ready to be unveiled are street dining permits to allow people to, or sidewalk dining permits to allow people to set up chairs and tables on the sidewalks. Many businesses are already doing it. The community development department is not turning people away. If people want to do it, they'll work with them. The official program that will make it really easy for anybody will probably be out later this week. We have stuff in place to allow parking lot dining, which is I think some of what Pasta Moon and other places are doing. That doesn't take any special permit or program. It just takes a little coordination with the city. And then we're working with a few businesses who do want to do street side dining. They want to set up tables in parking spots on the street, similar to the parklet idea, I think a little bit lower scale. And again, that's a way for us to pilot these things that would, I think, make downtown great, but we've got to prove it to these businesses. They're not going to take our word for it or other communities' words for it. They want to see it in action. So we'll see how that goes. What was the second part of your comments? There was.
Well, I was just wondering in terms of like safety.
Oh, yes. And that one's tough. The county does not and will not provide us specific data. But two things. One is you've probably seen on Nextdoor and in the community when restaurants have had contact issues with COVID, they're really quick to get out to the community, let them know we're closing down, we're cleaning. So I think it's probably safe to say that the restaurants you've mentioned probably have not had any issues. Additionally, we do have Joe Butcher, who's our community preservation specialist. He does code enforcement, but he's been really active during this time period, proactively and also responsively, as people have called and complained. When someone goes to a business and says, those tables don't feel like they're far enough apart, or I was at a restaurant and they weren't making people keep their masks on until they were seated, or those kinds of things. Joe goes down, he works with the businesses. 9 times out of 10, the businesses are just, they got a little lazy or they didn't know, and they fix it. And then 1 time out of 10, we got to push a little bit harder, but all the businesses have been really complicit in working with us. You know, I talked to Crystalline when the state issued the order eliminating indoor dining again. And I was like, oh gosh, you know, we're working on all these pilots and programs. Do we need to speed all that up? Do we need to make outdoor dining more available? And I talked to Crystalline, who had been working with the businesses, and so many of our businesses have been so cautious and careful about all of this, that these fluctuations happening at the state and county levels, they're not really being impacted by it. They're taking such slow steps into opening. It's Italia is a perfect example. They have an outdoor patio. They only opened it last week. Betsy really wanted to make sure she was sure that everybody would be safe, her staff would be safe, the protocols would be in place. And that's how our businesses have been behaving. And so I think it's really led to a much better environment for our community. And things are more sustainable when they're implemented because they're done in the right way. And they're not, as soon as we can do something, we do it. And so, you know, I think the businesses are taking the right approach, and we're trying to follow that from the city side.
Matthew, have the businesses or Eddie, have the businesses you've talked to or in the meetings, are they doing anything about making sure that they're getting their staff tested?
I've not had one conversation with any business owner about testing of staff or self-testing, or just, I know when people from the public and the community ask me, we have usually every month or every couple of weeks they host one at the Cunha Middle School. So I'll always direct them to that and to look for that information. But I've never heard about any organization testing internally.
That's a really good question, Paulette. And I have meetings with the Downtown Association, the Chamber, and the hotels tomorrow. I will ask that question.
Ask the question.
Because I think you're right.
Because,
That's
I mean,
important
it's
for us to know.
available. It's available to us right now, the testing. I really, to me, any responsible business owner should be having getting their staff to get tested, to make, and to Amy's point, I mean, not knowing anything, San Mateo being so secretive about the information, how are we ever going to do contact tracing? That's like there's not a hope in hell it'll ever happen if we're going to be this secretive about finding out what is happening in our own community.
Well, the county is doing contact tracing pretty extensively. They're just not sharing any of that information with us. And I will say that as part of the protocols for these businesses, they do have to have the indicators check, things like a temperature of those questions that you have to kind of self-assess before you come to work. But no, I don't know about actual COVID testing, and we'll find out. We'll ask that question.
Okay, good.
Well, I just want to let you know, I went to dinner Saturday night at Uno something or other. And we had our temperature checked before we walked in the door, and kept our masks on until we ordered, and then we were able to take them off. It was done very well. But the one thing that I have concerns about is the traffic here on the weekends. I mean, it was brutal. It was almost like Pumpkin Festival on Highway 1, especially heading north and trying to get through 92. So I think there's these things we need to also, consider. So, but it's a great plan. You have to start somewhere. So thank you for the report. Are we going to talk about the parks and beach ordinances, Matthew?
Yes, I have a short presentation for you. And Jonathan, just confirming no public comment on that last item.
No comment.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, Jonathan, can you enable screen sharing for me?
1 second. There you go.
Okay. This presentation follows a council item that happened on the 21st. I shared it briefly in my update, but we want to give you more details. And I'll start right out from the gate. Normally, we would have wanted to present the proposed ordinance changes to this group first, and then take it to the council with some of your feedback and input. In this case, there was changes that I'm not even sure what they were. They were related to public works and parking enforcement and other enforcement that needed to happen very quickly. And so they went to the council first. I'll get you up to speed. If you have any thoughts, we can look at ways to incorporate them either now or in the future. So by way of background, our municipal code includes provisions related to parks in 2 of our titles and several chapters. So our municipal code's broken down into, I think, 9 or 10 titles, which are sections of different types of regulations. And then within each one, there are different chapters related to different areas of the city. And parks, again, falls into several of these. Overall, our staff, working with the city attorney's office and the city clerk's office, are in the process of reviewing and updating many of our code sections. Code gets, it's written in a way that can last a long time, but if you don't revisit it, it can become very stale and very antiquated. And you find yourself trying to enforce something and it doesn't make sense. So we're trying to get that updated and cleaned up and create consistency between our code and state laws and the policies and programs we have in place right now. And we did some of this as part of the signage update process back in 2019. And this is just an extension of that work. So the ordinance that the council approved last Tuesday night included several revisions. The first were just to clarify and modernize some of the language. It was to incorporate regulations for city beaches that don't even exist, to add and clarify rules for parks and beaches, to correct some inadvertent revisions that were made as part of the 2019 revision, and then to address a major sustainability issue. So some of the big changes, to get specific, in Title 8, Chapter 8.04, that's where it talks about dogs being on leashes and the ability for us to have off-leash parks. We've incorporated provisions, and our fee schedule includes this. Now, we still have to create the program, but we now have the authority to do this. Commercial dog walker permits. And commercial is very loosely defined as anybody walking more than 3 dogs at one time. And what this does is it allows us to regulate this industry a little bit more here on the coast. We know that dog walkers from all across the peninsula and even the Bay Area love to come to the coast side and utilize our beaches and our open space and the coastal trail to walk very large amounts of dogs. This puts a limit on how many dogs each person can control, how they're controlled, and requires people to register with the city and get a permit before they perform this. And then that allows our sheriff and our code enforcement staff to respond to any complaints or proactive interactions with folks to ensure that they're following the rules and paying their fair share for the impact that they have on the coast side. The other thing that this does is it provides clarifying language to allow the city council to establish more off-leash areas within the city. It doesn't actually establish any of those as part of this code change, but it makes it so we don't have to go back for an ordinance change to establish an off-leash area. So for a specific event or for a pilot program or just an area we want to turn into an off-leash dog area, and now it just takes an action of the council one time at a regular council meeting to move that forward. I will say, just as a heads up, something that we've been talking about, and this will allow us to explore further when we have more time and bandwidth, is potentially turning a portion of Poplar Beach into an off-leash dog beach. And then what we would do is probably prohibit dogs at all from the other portions of the beach. We know that people want to go to Poplar, especially because of its size and width, and let their dogs run. And we think there might be a way to accommodate that safely and eliminate interactions with people who don't want to be at the beach around other people's dogs, and especially the horses that can be on the beach and the interactions that happen with horses and dogs, which are a kind of a ticking time bomb if we don't manage that better. Again, none of this is established. These are just ideas we have, and this language allows us to pursue some of those if and when we choose. And of course, a public process and outreach would take place before any of this could happen. Title IX, Chapter 9.12 has some changes. We moved the glass container prohibition to another chapter, which will make it much more clear where and when glass containers are prohibited. And there's some amendments to the infraction language that allows the sheriff to enforce more effectively in our parks and beaches. So the big changes are in Title IX, Chapter 9.13, which used to be called Beach Regulation or Park Regulations. It's now been retitled Park and Beach Regulations because beaches were not included in our parks list previously. And there are differences between what's allowed on a beach and what's allowed in a park. And so we wanted to establish all of that in this section. There's minor revisions to hours and names based on the work that we did in 2019. Most key to that is we don't have the ability, the legal right or ability to close a beach. The Coastal Commission laws require that beaches have public access 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Occasionally, in an emergency situation like what we did on July 4th, the city has the ability to have authority to do a closure like that, but on an extended period of time or not in an emergency situation, we don't have the ability to close the beaches. So it clarifies that beaches are open and accessible to the public. We are able to close parking lots, trails, parks adjacent to beaches, facilities adjacent to beaches, but the beaches themselves are publicly accessible 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. A big change is we are implementing a ban on plastic bottle usage, single-use plastic bottle usage in our parks and in our beaches. So anything smaller than 1 liter is not allowed in our city parks or on our beaches. And again, that's single use. So that would be anything from a bottle of water to a bottle of soda or juice. And we recognize that we're probably going to have some growing pains through this and outreach and education and enforcement, but we think it's the step in the right direction to have these policies and then work with the community to figure out how they work best. One of the other changes we've made, similar to the off-leash dogs, we're giving ourselves authority to work with the council on a program, but we don't have anything specifically in mind. As you know, fires are banned on our beaches, and there's a lot of good reasons for that. But other communities have been able to have city-managed or county-managed fire pits that allow for a limited number of private fires on the beaches. And it's something that we want to explore. Again, we don't have the bandwidth or the staffing or resources to do that right now. But the changes that have been made will give us that opportunity to propose and work on such a program down the road. And then one of the other changes in 2019 that happened inadvertently through some of the language changes is alcohol has always been allowed on city beaches. Inadvertently, we outlawed it in 2019. It wasn't enforced. We corrected that with this. We also did a check-in with the city council on whether or not that was something they wanted to explore. Maybe they didn't want alcohol to be allowed on the beaches, but they confirmed that they didn't want to prohibit that. Again, it can't be in a glass bottle or in a single-use plastic bottle, but there are opportunities for people to have alcohol on beaches again. So big policy issues that were considered, continuing to allow alcohol consumption on our beaches, banning our single-use plastic bottles on our beaches and in our parks, and the potential down the road to allow fires on our beaches within a city program and city provided and operated fire pits. And then the other thing I wanted to share in relation to this is some of the sustainability policy work that we're doing in our facilities. It's related to the single-use plastics ban. As you know, sustainability has been a city council priority for the last couple of years and continues now. And a big step is banning single-use plastic bottles in our facilities and on our parks and beaches. So that also includes staff events, and we've been implementing that unofficially for a long time. We don't buy plastic water bottles for any of our meetings or outreach events when it can be avoided, and we'll double down and make sure that that's how we operate. We'll either provide pitchers, or at least if it's single use, it's a large, gallon of water that can be dispensed to lots of different people, as opposed to having several plastic bottles. Our city operations and purchasing policy is being updated to promote more sustainable things like not buying plastic straws or even disposable foodware. We want to get to the point where we can provide reusable forks and knives and plates and cups for all of our city events and staff events. And having a full service kitchen will make that much easier. It'll give us a place to store enough of that to provide for our events. And having a commercial dishwasher will make it a lot easier to break down an event. And then our Public Works sustainability team is working on a disposable foodware ordinance, following what the county did earlier this year. It's really working with the restaurants to change the way that they provide to-go food and pick up food. We slowed down on this in relation to COVID, because obviously pickup and takeout is one of the key ways that our businesses can continue to operate. And implementing a policy like this in the middle of it would be a really big burden. So it's something we'll take up in this fall and talk more about at that point. But our goals and vision set forth by the council are really for the city to lead by example, to do these things on our own, and then slowly roll it out to other businesses and agencies where we have jurisdiction, and then to be really consistent in what we're doing and what we expect of other people. So some things we wanted to talk about tonight is we are going to be incorporating sustainability provisions into our rental agreements. Some of these already exist, but we'll strengthen the requirements and add additional things. So waste sorting requirements, Eddie and his team have worked really hard with Public Works to make sure we have adequate three-stream waste disposal in all of our facilities, and properly trained staff that knows how to direct the disposal of things. People sometimes get confused about what goes where, and our recreation team is really great at being able to provide that expertise for folks and help in party planning and event planning to make sure that happens. Again, a plastic bottle ban, single-use plastic smaller than 1 liter, will be implemented as part of our rental agreements. So we'll expect renters to not bring water bottles into their events. We'll look at ways that we can support either providing pitchers to use our filtered water stations that we have throughout the Ted Adcock, and other ways for folks to have single-use or multi-use items at their events. We'll also be working on a slow implementation of eliminating disposable foodware. We'll move to compostables as being allowed, with preference towards and encouragement towards reusable foodwares. And then decorations for events requiring reusable tablecloths, whether they're washable cloth or plastic tablecloths, or just not using tablecloths and just wiping tables down. And then something that Eddie's pointed out is what we call micro trash that seems to be common after a party, and that could be the contents left over after the breaking of a piñata, or confetti that's been thrown as part of a party, or other small items that people leave behind. And our team's been really creative in thinking with Public Works about ways that we can encourage even providing ways for people to do piñatas indoors, so that garbage doesn't make it outside and into the grass and into the habitat and environment that's outside of our buildings, but still allowing those cultural celebrations to take place. So this is something we're working on right now, and we're interested in other ideas you have specific to our facilities and our facility rentals of how we could support and promote more sustainable activities and events in our facilities when we're able to reopen. Any thoughts?
Really impressive to me. I wish I had great ideas, other great ideas, because this is just a lot. I have to think about it some more. I hope I can, but I mean, this is really impressive.
The good thing with our rental agreements is we can modify them at any time for any new events going forward. So, you know, we have a great team. We've got great sustainability staff. Veronica will bring her to one of our meetings in the future, and she'll present some of the work that she's doing that would really be collaborative with recreation and this commission. But you know, she's a professional. She thinks about this stuff 24/7, and so she outthinks all of us on this. But I do think this commission could probably provide some other thoughts and ideas, and we can incorporate those at any time. And I think this provides a context for what we're already doing.
One of the things, Matthew, that came, I really don't know. I mean, Walter swears that is what he saw, is that he saw our green bin being put in when Republic came around, being put in with just regular trash. And I think we have to get to the bottom of that. Make sure that we know what it is they're doing with trash, because there's no point our going through all these efforts to, you know, be sustainable, do it right, you know, get it, if it ends up all in the same place anyway. So we really have to get Republic back in to answer these questions as to how things are going with our trash. Because what I was going to say in terms of any other ideas, when it comes to, we still have to find a way. People just do not put, you know, when you have a gathering or you have anything, when it comes to sorting and putting the right things in the right containers, we all know it just doesn't happen. And so, but if it doesn't matter, then it doesn't matter. But if it matters, then we really need to get creative about how to do this in a way that it works.
Quick question on that. The instance that you mentioned that Walter observed, was that like in your neighborhood, residential?
Yeah, in our neighborhood.
Okay. Well, obviously we'll follow up with that with Public Works, but you know, it just made me think in some of your comments that maybe when we bring Veronica, our sustainability coordinator, to a rec commission meeting, maybe we bring some of the Republic folks as well, and we can have a good discussion about how this commission and recreation can support sustainability in the community, and have some of those discussions. You know, how do we encourage people to, you know, you can make rules, you can provide the facilities, but unless you grab their hand and move it to the right bin, how do you encourage people to do the right things? And
right.
And so that could be a good discussion. So maybe that's something we'll schedule at a future meeting.
Okay, great.
I guess you know, this made me think of Eva, because I'm thinking about composting and just, I feel like she might be busy right now, but I don't know if she's in there somewhere, but I thought she might have some thoughts.
Yeah, I'm here. Well, you mean for the community garden, we are going to have a whole compost area, so we could totally accept vegetables and that kind of greens for the compost bins for the garden. So yeah, maybe we could work with the city to so that they're not thrown away, you know, all kinds of compostable like greens.
But what made me think of it is, and I don't know, I'm really ignorant about composting, but I just, you know, if it can be like any food, that's as
Yeah.
powerful in terms of
Yeah, just not eat.
people. I mean, a lot of trash is actually food. sadly.
Yeah, that's a really good point. But yes, certain kind of food, not everything. But
I know this is kind of jumping to our next item, but I wonder, Eva, is part of the plan for the community garden, the composting area, is that strictly going to be used for feeding the gardens, or do you think there'll be enough capacity that people could even come and get compost for their own gardens?
yeah, totally. Well, right now we're thinking about producing enough compost for our gardens, but if we did have excess, like if we, had a large enough area and we were working with the city and had lots of greens, then we would totally open up to the community. Absolutely.
And maybe that's something we could extend. Maybe there's an area outside the Ted Adcock that could be turned into a compost area. It'd have to be carefully managed, as you mentioned, so we don't get the wrong things. But when we do our sustainability events, they often, one of the things they provide is a big bin of compost, and people come and fill it, and it's always really, really popular. And maybe there's a chance at some of our city facilities to just make that available 24/7. Probably not bring your compostables and dump them all the time, because we want to manage that. But maybe, after an event or after, city activities, we have ways to create that compost, and then it's available for people to pick up. So I'll share that with Veronica. I'm sure that's something she'd love to think about and ultimately work with CFOG on.
That would be great.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
and
love
we
that.
do. And actually, the vice president of our board, his whole expertise is composting, and he's been a master gardener for decades, and he's lived in Half Moon Bay for most of his life. He's an older gentleman. So yes, absolutely, we would totally be excited about that.
My experience from working in the food industry, catering, it's all about programming and teaching people, and it's habit. It's habit, how we do things. We do things a lot differently than we did 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And I think that's something we really need to look at. And it's having the containers identified, and so that we know where we're putting our, and it becomes our habit. And so it's all about learning, and I think that's where our signage comes in, as well as having the bins available. Also, too, to consider, it's real great to talk about compost and having it. I can see it happening up at the Johnson House facility with our community garden, because I think that's going to be a major part of that whole development, with the bins and growing these vegetables and having people involved and people learning about compost. It's going to be ideal. But I would I would recommend that we keep it kind of on a growth level, that the Johnson that our community garden is it's our project. It's our project. And I think that there's so many different areas where we're going to just explode with having a community garden. So it's a good thing. We have to have the dialogue. We all learn.
And it seems more important now than ever before.
Oh yeah.
I want to show you guys my worm compost bin.
Yes.
Do you see that?
I have one.
I have, and then I also have so this is, we compost our food at home, and then we have this big bin here. Do you see that?
That's a good one. The tumbler, huh?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're definitely practicing ourselves. Yeah, very excited. It is the way of the future for sure. Very important.
Awesome. And we only have about 10 minutes left, and this seems to be a good transition point into the community garden update. I was prepared to report out, but because I wasn't sure if we'd have you, Eva, do you want to just kind of share? There's been a lot of good activity in the last couple of weeks, and I think we're making some progress. Maybe you want to share some of what's happened.
Sure. Yes, the board has been in dialogue with the city about signing the agreement. Um, so we're reviewing that right now. There was a couple of well, I wouldn't say concerns, but just questions, and so we're getting to the point where we will finalize the agreement, hopefully very soon. And so right now I've been working with, so we have board directors for CFOG, and so they've been really involved. And we also have 100 members. We sent out a monthly e-newsletter. I think everybody's on here. Well, except Paulette. I don't know if you want to be on there, Paulette, but we sent out a monthly e-newsletter
Definitely.
about the community garden, but also about other gardening in the region. Because I'm also a master gardener. I just became a master gardener, and two of our board members are master gardeners, and probably we have around 5 or 6 master gardeners part of the membership. So so we're hoping to do some sheet mulching, later this summer, and really get the community gardens going with the fence and the raised beds, bringing in some soil, um, all kinds of. We have a whole layout of the 1/3 acre to just start off with, and then next year we're planning to do permits for the shed and the greenhouse. That kind of stuff requires a permit. So we're going to do that later on with the county. But for now, we're planning to just start with the nuts and bolts of starting the community garden as soon as we get the agreement signed. We already have, with the city's commitment, we have a total of $44,000. So I think that's a good chunk to get things started. I'm also in the process of working with several other committee members to send out proposals to foundations to get more money. I'm hoping that we could raise 100 to 200,000 a year. That's the goal, to get enough resources, maybe even hire someone in the future to manage volunteers, and then expand down the coast. So it's a good time to, as Amy was saying, this is a really good time to think about organic farming and composting, especially with the COVID. Anyways, Matt,
Yeah,
did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I don't think I didn't cover this last week, and we hadn't met since all this started. So in April, we took the general terms for an agreement to the council and had a really good discussion. They approved it and authorized us under certain conditions, and those are the conditions we're working on right now to finalize and execute the agreement with CFOG. It's a 5-year agreement, which will allow them to operate in that area to the east of the train depot. And they've worked really hard to work with the county, and the county's confirmed that even though there are some wetland areas and other things there, because it's in prime ag land, they don't have to do anything. Once we get the permit in place and we give the thumbs up, they can start the farming at any time. And it also sounds like the fencing can go up, and the city committed $20,000 that will be provided to CFOG as soon as the agreement's signed. And then, as Eva said, they've got other funding from other sources. I think some of the big challenges that they're going to be working on too will be finding a sustainable water source. There is not sustainable water right now at that site. So they're going to be working with us on identifying and procuring that. And then, as she said, the permits for some of the structures they want to bring in will take a little bit longer with the county. And then, of course, all of this will be looked at as a kind of a pilot, a pretty good sized pilot, to see where else we can expand this, whether it's on additional land at the Johnston House. We're finalizing our acquisition of 880 Stone Pine, where the corporation yard is, and that has a history of ag use and could be another great location for additional community gardens. So long term, I think CFOG is really set up for success long term, and getting this agreement in place will solidify that relationship, and then I think the sky's the limit. So we're excited to get this finalized and get it moving forward.
Yeah, very exciting. Thank you, Matt, for your help.
Thank you.
So We finished with the community garden. Any
Paulette was
questions?
trying to
I
talk.
said I harvested our first turnip today. Because
Good for you.
of course, just as Eva was saying, COVID really brings out I mean, we did a whole three raised beds to grow some produce around here, so that we have something we can go out into the garden. That's why I was admiring Ellen's tomato
Yeah.
earlier. If anyone missed it, there it is again. I've got cherry tomatoes in my garden, which are just, again, you just pop one of those in your mouth and you're like, wow, it's incredible. Yeah. Very good.
I was never a big tomato fan, but I found out it's because I was only eating supermarket tomatoes. And
Yes.
we had this neighbor. She was this little old Italian immigrant, and she had thousands of tomatoes in her backyard and created her own sauces. And I remember the first time I tasted one of her tomatoes, that was a life-changing experience. You know, I had not tasted a tomato before then. I tasted some trash before.
Yeah.
Then.
Here's my tomatoes.
Wow. All right.
My
So
mint.
do we
Yeah,
have
I've
any
got-
future?
I've got 5 raised beds. We just installed 2 more.
Fabulous.
Is there any other business?
Okay, this is probably an offline question, but I just wanted to bring it up here. So one of the things that's been on my mind, you know, and I wondered if Matthew had any thoughts on this, is just, I guess, feeling like, is there any way, has the city, I don't know how to say this. I've been worrying lately about people who live alone, who might have not had anybody that would know, step on them, or, do you know what I'm saying? Just because people aren't going out and doing their normal things. So that's a cert thing, but.
Well, I think it's a CERT thing. It's a Village of the Coastside thing. It's, you know, the youth can be involved. I think senior coastsiders and Village of the Coastside have been doing a lot of work around that, as have the CERT groups. But yeah, it's something we think about as well. You know, I just think this current pandemic is already turning into another pandemic, which is a mental health pandemic, and which we already had, but it's just so much worse now because so many people are feeling isolated and scared. And that's why, you know, the city, even though we've cut back a lot of our spending, our grant program was higher this year, and a lot of that money went towards some of those types of services because we just know there's going to be a huge need in the community. You know, I haven't really brainstormed how this group could support that effort, but if that's something you think we should have a discussion about and come up with some ideas about, we could certainly do a little research and agendize it for the next meeting.
Yeah, because like with CERT, you know, before all this, one of the things we were trying to do was, I mean, just know who all of our neighbors were. And it's a hard thing to do in normal times, but I feel like the community garden, like now it's so clear how essential it is. And so I'm wondering if we could come up with some kind of a campaign that's really very not, you know, that has no other ulterior thing, just like, hey, we all need to look out for each other, and like some kind of cute thing that where we could, you know, be positive, but a way that people can connect. So we know all your neighbors, and something kind of partnered maybe.
So can I add something? In our community, Keyhole and Casa de Mar, and Paulette, I don't know if you saw this or not, but me and Kristen, she's the real estate person for Compass, we got together and we decided to put on next door just for Keyhole area. People can do 3 things. They could contribute food, they could deliver, or they could contribute money. And so we were able to raise $1,000, and we were able to identify 5 people, elderly people, to help, or even not all of them are elderly. They just have issues. They just don't have enough money, or they have problems like health problems, so they can't go to the store. So we have people go to the store for them, pick up their meds for them, do all kinds of things. But then I realized, because in the beginning, not many people, it was hard to get people to, we were raising money, but we weren't getting enough people to help, because a lot of the elderly people in this community, they're 80 years old and they're like, no, we don't need help, but we know a 90-year-old that needs help. And it's just, people are just very independent, is what I found out. But anyways, the point is, so we did a postcard and we sent it out to all of Keyhole and Casa de Mar and Paula. I don't know if you got that postcard, but we got it. We sent it to everyone, and we were able to get a total of 5 people, which we really wanted to get more people than that. But whenever we did get people, we asked them, "Do you know somebody that we can help in Casa de Mar Keyhole area?" And then what started to happen was people were like, "Well, I know this 90-year-old, but she lives in Moss Beach." And so we actually have a few people that don't live in Casa de Mar that we're helping. Anyways, I think if all the little communities in Half Moon Bay did something like this, then it would be, you would get everyone. And like, I really like the idea of the mental health, because it's not just about food and picking up meds. It's also about, having company, having someone come over your house, because people are lonely, I think, especially the elderly, they're not getting out. And so I think it's something that, I don't know for this commission to really discuss, but definitely maybe something for the city to start thinking about, because there might be, be more suicide rate, or who knows what may happen in the future, because I don't think COVID is probably going to go away for a while, maybe a year or two.
Matthew, let me ask you something that I know has been brought up in the past, but seems in a way more important now maybe than ever, which is the idea of the city, that there is Wi-Fi throughout the city. Because there are people who used to go to the coffee shops or restaurants to use the Wi-Fi, that was their place. But of course, now they can't do that. And then we started out with the school thing, with the discussion of kids, and that they don't have Wi-Fi necessarily. They might have a computer, but they don't have Wi-Fi. They would have gone someplace, but now that's more difficult. That whole so the idea of pursuing and looking into what the possibilities are for the city to provide Wi-Fi, citywide.
So what I can say about that, the resources it would take for the city to provide that is not something the city has or would have. I mean, that's a multi-million dollar project, a citywide Wi-Fi. It's been explored by both the city and the county in the past. It's been piloted. The county is doing free Wi-Fi in various locations, and they always consult with us, and we have some input on where they go. All of the energy around that type of effort right now is focused on school-age children, making sure that they have access. And the county is really putting its money where its mouth is right now. They are committed through a variety of means to bringing Wi-Fi to every single family, every household in Moonridge. And they're doing that with either a bus that is just a giant Wi-Fi facility.
Giant router.
Yeah, and it would just be parked in the parking lot at Moonridge during the school year, or a series of smaller ones. And they're also doing some similar work in East Palo Alto and North Fair Oaks and Redwood City. I'm part of a group, and now Brian, our IT analyst in our admin services department, is participating in a group called SAMCAT, which is a JPA that we're a member of. Lots of acronyms. So a JPA is a Joint Powers Authority, kind of like SAM. It's a bunch of agencies that pool together their resources and money over a specific effort. This particular group, SAMCAT, is the San Mateo County Communications and Cable and Telecommunications Group. It started back when cities actually had cable franchises. So back a long time ago, for those that were, I don't know if anybody here was on the coast back when there was a coastside cable service that was based out of El Granada. That building next to the old fire station, there was coastside cable. That was all you had access to.
Right. Yeah.
And San Bruno still has its own cable, city provided cable. That group has morphed into discussions about telecommunications and technology. And I would say 50% of our conversations with that group, it includes every city and the county, is about bringing Wi-Fi to areas that are in need. And so there's a lot of discussions about that. The county is working on a project to bring fiber optic cable as a loop right now they have fiber that come down 92 and into Half Moon Bay to serve the county facilities. And then they have stuff in Pacifica. They want to bring a loop down so that it's redundant, so that if there's a cutoff in one area, it opens up another area. So what we've proposed to them is that they look at that project as a way to, one, create redundancy with Comcast and AT&T, so that, you know, when there's a telephone pole that gets knocked down, all of Comcast doesn't go out on the coast side. But also build in enough infrastructure when they bring in the fiber for the county, that if at some point publicly provided or subsidized internet access and Wi-Fi could be much easier to provide. And Harvey is really interested in this, and him and I have had several meetings with companies that could facilitate something like that. It basically would be everybody on the coast would have to commit to basically canceling their Comcast and their AT&T, because you need certain numbers, and unfortunately on the coast it would take everybody. But to go into a different kind of service where everybody would have access to the highest speeds of internet if possible, and redundancy. And again, Wi-Fi becomes part of that. All of these are very long-term, very expensive projects, and the county's doing these small things in the meantime to try to backfill. And then the other piece of it, of course, is the 5G technology, which is kind of the next generation of cell phone technology, is hundreds times faster than what we're used to on our cell phones right now. And it might make sense to utilize that kind of infrastructure and just provide phone service and phones to people in need. And then, you know, those jet packs and those types of things be much cheaper than building new infrastructure. So that's a lot to say on an issue that I don't think we're going to pursue heavily going forward, but just wanted to share some of the efforts that are already taking place around it, and that it is being thought of in the long, you know, the big long term. So if and when there's something I think that is maybe promising,
it's just that
we could bring it to this group.
Who was it that just was Eva? Just that whole thing about people being isolated, or it was Amy. For me, I mean, if it wasn't for some of my Zoom meetings with my friends, I mean, this is yes, it's a hard time to go through mentally and emotionally. It definitely is. And it's, those are like, my big thing to look forward to, is setting up a little party, Zoom party with some of my friends. So, that's why having the Wi-Fi access is just, frankly, pretty critical at this point.
So let me propose this, because as I mentioned earlier, our staff resources are thin and are focused mostly on COVID response and reaction. But I think there's a tie to COVID response to this. I propose for our next meeting, we agendize an item where we talk about creative ways to help address isolation during COVID, and staff will do some research around it. You all can do some research around it as well. And I think as a kind of a result is we might be able to identify some ways that recreation and our recreation department and our facilities can help with some of that. And then we might have other information to share with other groups to help promote that. Because I do think it's an important issue, and there might be some connections to the work that we do in recreation to that. And I think I'll probably have Victor join us as well, because he works with all the nonprofits and the Latino community so closely, and I think can help with that perspective as well.
You can have a captain or somebody from CERT who's been doing it for a while. That'd be great.
Okay, I would like to share that we do have a city newsletter. And I think it would be wise to have a phone number if people need to call. The other thing is too, is I want to address Amy. I think that was a great idea, because it's real important for people to connect, and it's not as hard as we kind of make it out to be. There's so much going on here in Half Moon Bay for outreach. It's very, very impressive, but we still have people that need to know that, you know, it'll be okay. I mean, whatever, you just have to smile, and you can't show a smile anymore because you're wearing a mask. And but I think a campaign in the city of just smile and say thank you, you know, be kind, whatever. We're just you have such a smart community communications division that is going to come up with something. And you know, maybe it is something for us to talk about, but that's what I would like to present. So anyway,
As you were
thank you all.
talking, I thought I'll have Colleen join us as well. She does all of this.
Exactly. Yeah, she's fabulous. So is there anything else we need to talk about? Everybody's good? Shall we close the meeting? Am I? Did I?
No, you just got to bang some kind of gavel or something.
Oh, okay.